Okay, so for those of you watching, I know exactly what I'm doing. I have found a serious flaw
We're
in the
not back
system.
to.
The hotkey to open the AI on my Dia browser is Command E. As it turns out, that's the same hotkey to stop the stream. So if I don't have my mouse, if I don't have the Dia browser front and center, and I do Command E, it stops the stream.
Eject.
Wowzer. Okay. Well,
So, in fact, it has made you dumber in
in
this
fact,
one
it has made
case.
me dumber. So we will chalk tonight up to David has learned something new, and I got to learn something new with some good friends. But we are now live for the third time. And I again apologize to everyone. It's not my night. That's okay, though. We're all allowed to have those nights.
You
Here's my
being human
question.
again. So human.
Oh, so human. Here's my question to you all. My question to you all is, with so much of our memory and learning and even decision making being outsourced to technology, to artificial intelligence, are we actually getting smarter by freeing up our minds for creativity? Or are we losing essential cognitive skills in the process? And I'll give you one example. One example is the cognitive skill that, yeah, Richie, I apologize for that. Sorry, Ron. Sorry, Gary. Again, the example is doing research. I was just talking about this at dinner with my wife tonight. I don't really need to do research anymore. I need to review research. I need to make sure it's correct. But I don't need to go to the library. I don't even need to, as Tamara, as we were talking about before, I don't even need to, peruse lots of websites. I don't need to do that anymore. Is that good or bad? Am I losing an essential cognitive skill by not being able to do that work? Lois, you're shaking your head.
Because I answered no to both your questions.
Okay.
The the fact that you aren't reading the book and figuring out what's in there is just like a professor who has an assistant who is assisting them by reading this material and giving them summaries and that sort of thing. So I don't think that that is research that you're not doing. You are having an assistant do the grunt work for you, but connecting the pieces, hopefully, is something that you're doing.
Okay. Fair enough.
I
I
think
wanted
the.
to address the question of dumb and smart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because, my dad used to tell me educated people may not be smart. And I think he was right. We have access to a lot of information, but are we smart about it? We drive a car, but are we smart about it? It really has a connotation of having given some thought to what's going on. People don't seem to have enough time to decide anything because they're pushed and pressured and given deadlines, and the quarter has to have more income. So the sense I have is that we aren't dumber, but we're not given any time to think. And that may be why we feel dumber, is because I never spent the time sitting down and working out what is all of this mattering to me. So that's just my take on it.
Tamara, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I
That's
think
Sky.
too. There are a couple issues, but one is how we define smart. So what we're talking about when we're reading a lot of this research is, oh, we're not able to remember things the way we used to. And I think part of that is that we prioritized memory of facts over logical thinking and actual creative thinking, not creative as in like artistic thinking, but complex thinking. And so a lot of people who are where the research is coming in now is not in the actual documents that it produces, but it's in the critical questions that you're asking and the clarity and the refinement that you're asking. So people who are really good at spitting out facts and don't have critical thinking are using GPTs in a way that is pretty shallow. It's they're asking a basic question and they're not doing the research skills to like clarify that question or to think about how long the prompt should be. No one, they're using it kind of the way that they used Google. So is that less smart than what they were doing before? Not necessarily, but people who are utilizing the same critical skills that they were using as researchers are researching with the question, and then they're reading back the answer and going in for more clarification and saying, I didn't really mean that, what I meant was this. And so that the depth of conversation is actually where the intellectualness is coming from.
Go ahead, Scott.
Which is a little different.
I love the iterative process that Tamara brought to the conversation. And Dave, that you learned something tonight. I celebrate that you learned something amongst friends. Now, to your question, is AI making us dumber? The thought that came to my mind that I put in our group chat opportunity was ignorance versus stupidity. And yes, I asked my question of a machine, and it came back with, although ignorance and stupidity are often used in similar ways, they are very different nuances. Ignorance is simply the lack of knowledge, either in general or about a specific issue or topic. Now, stupidity refers to the lack of ordinary level of intelligence, wit, or quickness of mind. So, are we getting stupider? Well,
Yeah.
that's a matter of choice by the human and the tools and that are coming at us very quickly and easily. So, there's my two movies that came to mind were Wall-E, because they made the robot too cute. That was the director's comment in the director's quote, was because what they were trying to do was talk to humans about consumerism, but the cute robot made it that the people didn't understand that's what the movie was about. And then the third quote was from the Matrix movie when it said, "Oh yeah, you're all just going to be a bunch of copper tops to feed the energy for the machine." Like, well, here's a good option.
Yeah, I actually think that defining words is really, really important in this conversation.
Thank you. Yes,
because and Tamara, you brought this up, that the idea of offloading facts, right? The fact that I don't have to know that content isn't king anymore, and we see this in education now, the shift from content knowledge to skill acquisition. That the definition of the word smart is shifting,
Right.
and right how what we understand, and I'm not sure if the word intelligence makes sense here, but certainly knowledge. It's changing. What people need to be
Right.
successful is drastically changing, and so that means that the definitions of the terms of cognitive success are changing. Red cabin acoustic. I think kids are getting more ignorant and more stupid. Don't know anything, can't do anything. What do you think? Is he right?
Disagree.
But is that because people are doing more for them? I don't think that the access to these models in schools is still very kind of some schools are really allowing it and others aren't. So I'm not sure that is a perfect example based on computers as it is based on a whole shift in how we raise children. And I think that is equal to it. The one thing I had a real problem with the research is that...
Sorry, can I just say one thing though, Tamara?
Yeah.
But the way that we raise children has also been impacted by our use of technology. Right? The fact that we shove I run a preschool, and every day, every kid shows up sitting in the back seat with an iPad on their lap, watching an iPad. In raising, I don't disagree with you, but in raising kids, it's not the direct technology that's affecting them. It's also the indirect technology that we've been shoving in their faces or using.
But we're shoving that in their faces because we don't want kids to feel uncomfortable. We don't want them to feel bored. We don't want them to feel, and so a lot of these solutions have been.
You're so kind, but no, we're shoving that in their faces so they'll stop bothering us.
Right, because what would happen if you didn't shove it in their faces? They would be sad. They would be this shift of making sure that everybody feels good about their life and that they get to make choices for themselves. 3-year-olds don't get to make all the choices for themselves. Sometimes parents can make those choices. So I think the shift, if you look at parenting manuals, which I've oddly studied as part of a childhood study of childhood in literature. I've literally looked at parenting manuals. If you go back to parenting manuals in like the 1700s and track them through, the choices that we're making as parents and as educators now is vastly different. And it's not necessarily wrong, but I think we're seeing, in order to have a protected childhood, which is what the kind of model for a successful society, is you want to have as long of a protected childhood as you can, and that protected childhood has prolonged childhood into what was traditionally adulthood. So you have a longer childhood. There's a really great book about how children changed and childhood was a protected thing. We went from having children who were going to help with the farms and help with the economy of the family and economy of the society, to a child that has a very, very protected life. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that does mean that we have to change our expectations and pull out in young adulthood some things that we would have expected a child to know, and understand that as a society, we also have to grow and adapt and open up our minds to how to take young adults and bring them into adulthood. And that is happening later now than it did even 20 years ago.
This is fascinating.
True,
I just
Tamara,
have to ask a question. What about Dr. Spock? Because I raised my kids in the age of Dr. Spock. So where does his parenting go?
It's different styles of parenting, right? But again, people now would look at Dr. Spock and go, not okay. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't, right? So it's the changing of how we value children, and we do value them, and we protect them from having to do. There's a lot more kids now who are not driving in high school. They're not getting jobs. And so when they get into college, it is horrifying for people who've been teaching college, and they're like, these kids are absolutely not prepared. No, they are still children, because we've taken childhood and we've extended it out, and that is what we do as a society that wants to protect the ideology of childhood, right?
Well, I had that situation with a college graduate who we hired who didn't drive, but Dr. Spock worked for me. The Dr. Spock book was great. If the kids were causing trouble, I just threw it down and it made noise.
Right.
And if that didn't work, I threw the book at them. And I have two very successful kids, so I think Dr. Spock worked.
Can I just? I want to bring something in. I rarely disagree with Miss Tamara over there, but
you can disagree with me. It's fine.
I think you've completely lost your mind. Here's all right. So
amazing.
No, I don't actually. But Red Cabin. I just want to bring up what Red Cabin Acoustic is saying in response a little bit to what you were saying. It's overly pessimistic, obviously. Technology that is so intuitive has eroded problem-solving skills. I want to take that a step farther and say that what you were just describing, Tamara, the way that we've, protecting childhood and extending childhood, all that stuff, we are eroding problem-solving skills by not letting our kids screw up and make mistakes.
But that's exactly we're in agreement with that. We're no longer teaching critical thinking skills, and we can't completely blame technology for that. We have
not completely,
shifted,
but again, technology is certainly contributing to that, don't you think?
No.
It makes it easier, but it doesn't make it our decisions what we do.
Technology is just the tool. It's not doing it. We're doing it.
You always say
I do, because it's true.
it's true, but tools matter. Like you have to choose the right tool
talking
for the right...
about the messages we give kids. The message you give kids when you're staring at your phone and they're in the playground is that they're here as a job. And you get the thing where they don't want to explore because it's too dangerous. And exploring is how you learn new things or challenge yourself. So we don't let our children challenge themselves unless we're ready to catch them or put the net underneath them. And it seems to me that when we talked about critical thinking, I think of critical analysis as being a skill for intelligence. If you have knowledge, but you have no way of expressing it, you have difficulty telling people what you know, you don't sound very intelligent. But if you have critical analysis, you're able to pull on the proper words, as Dave says, to be able to identify what it is we're talking about and what it is the person you're discussing it with is saying to you. And then you get learning and knowledge, and you're not dumb. We don't have that dialogue with the technology. The technology, we have a relationship with the technology, and that's sort of emotional, but it's not an intellectual relationship I have with any of my technology, including my little radiator over here. So no, it's not making us dumber. We have a feeling that we're dumber, but we're not. We're just
Tony.
not applying ourselves.
Tony, go ahead.
I want to look at this a little bit differently. So if we
Can you move the mic
If
just a
we
little
look-
closer to you, Tony?
if we take our current climate and processes that have worked for, let's say, the last 20 years, where there are parents who are able to provide their children with the tools that they need to succeed, they are able to embrace whatever tools that are available to their children, and they also give their children the supports that they need to succeed. AI is the same thing. The issue is with whatever tools that we are using, are the parents going to be able to give their children the support that they need? Another example would be you have two households. You have loving parents who provide all the computers, tools, iPads, whatever they need. Also, we know that most learning takes place in the home, not in the school. So those parents, those loving parents that are able to provide support with the tools, those children have an opportunity to succeed. Scenario one, where the parents are overworked or tired and don't have the resources to provide the tools, nor the extra educational supports that their children need, provides a deficit for those children. So those are the things that have happened in the past. When we look at society in general, and this is, I'm making a generalization. The issue becomes, I think, moving forward, if we are in a position that we take these AI tools, I do not believe that they make us dumber. I don't believe that. I embrace, here I go again with my Star Trek analogy, where a third grader is the equivalent, excuse me, Dr. Idelson, the third grader in the future has the educational level of a PhD. And I am hopeful that that is the way in which the future will unfold. Now, is it naive? Maybe it is. But I hold to the point that it's not about the tool. It is always about, and even when you were talking, David, about shoving the iPad in the child's face, I'm still hearing the parents providing the other support that the child needs. The issue becomes, is this particular child where there's a deficit? The parents are tired. They're overworked. They can't provide the educational thing. So to me, it comes down to tools.
Boy, you all are being so
I
generous.
have one more.
You're being so generous. Go ahead, Tamara.
So the one thing I do want to bring up is that I read through the research, and there's lots of research that is coming out that is saying that we are not as smart. There's some saying the other, but the research is a little bit incomplete because there's lots. It's focusing on memory and things that we can recall, and that does not take into effect anything that is like ADHD, menopause, certain medications, certain playing that also account for that. So we're seeing a lot of kind of red flag articles of like we're being made stupider, and I think it's complete research. It is experienced by a population that does not include everyone.
Yeah,
So I think
definitely
that
complete research.
Pardon?
It's crazy. I said it's definitely incomplete. It's
so
crazy.
that's the thing. So we can't. So it's very hard to make a thing that says we're absolutely wrong or we're definitely getting stupider based on the research that we currently have. Because the research we currently have is excluding whole swaths of our population.
Well, it also has a certain bias of where it's coming from.
Right.
I got involved in computer education and using computers in teaching back in the 70s with a thing called Plato and CAT, the computer assisted teaching. And I started with a little chart because there was a great deal of fear as I was doing this. People saying they're going to try to replace computers or teachers with computers. And there was a great resistance. Teachers did not want to be replaced. And I have a little note card that I threw creating all my courses. If I can be replaced by the computer, I should be. So what are we measuring?
Not providing value. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. Right.
But for
follow
Tony,
Lois?
I just want to say, Tony, there never will be a world where kindergartners have all the knowledge in the world. But you just have to wait till they're teenagers because then they claim they have it all. So just so you understand how being an educator, you learn those things.
Yeah.
And at
Lois,
Unmuted,
you're muted.
Lois.
18, you're also invincible.
Yeah.
That's true.
Lois,
go
you
ahead.
have to unmute.
Oh yeah, Lois, you're muted.
So could I bring us back to talking about memory? Because that was a lot of what these articles had to do with. And it seems to me that memory is more individual than almost anything. So my brother could look at a car and tell you exactly what make it was, what kind of engine it is. I mean, he loved to go and, mess with the innards. Me, I just want to drive it to go someplace. Now, if you ask me about the bird in my backyard, I'm much more likely to have the facts that I can remember and I can pull up and I can talk about. And, I may not have all the facts, but it interests me. And so I remember it. And I think that is one of the things that people don't distinguish enough, that memory is not one thing. It is, what are you remembering? Why are you remembering? And that brings me to a question that I don't have an answer to, and maybe we can talk about it some other time when we're not on the show. How do people actually make yourself remember something? So, obviously, if I get hit by a car, I'll probably remember that. If I get married, I'll probably remember that. But will I remember what I had for lunch 3 weeks ago? Yeah, maybe not. I'm in a class. How do I remember the stuff in the class in order to pass the test?
So
how
that's a really interesting question, Lois, because I'm thinking, when I do research for something, I tend to remember because I was doing the work. When I have ChatGPT do research for me, I doubt I'll remember that. So have I actually learned something?
But isn't that on you as to what you choose to remember?
Yeah, fair enough. So to that point, actually, Tlaloc wrote, intellectual laziness is not created by hammers or computers. I agree 100%. But I do think that we are given permission to be intellectually lazy because of these new technologies. Sure, it's still my fault. It's still my choice. I'll accept that. That's fine.
You'll buy that.
There are factors that lead me or that encourage me, that allow me and encourage me to be lazy, and that's what scares me. That's why I think that we are actually getting.
I would go back to Dave's point a little bit, because if you really think about the research that you do, David, chances are you remember the research, whether it was done on ChatGPT or whether it was done by hand, if you have a vested interest in it. If you love it, you will remember it. And if you don't love it, you won't remember it. And I think that that's part of what Dave was saying, is that we've gotten to a point where we have so much information coming at us that parsing through that information is exhausting. And it is something that I think is perpetuating some of these things. When I asked ChatGPT if it's making us stupider, one of the things that came back, this great quote, it said, it's not about remembering more, it's about forgetting smart. So it's about letting go of all of the millions of things that you don't need, that we are inundated with, which is very, very different than any other time in history, and remembering just the things you need to. But it does go back to the idea of, if you are interested in it, you remember it. And we have gotten to a point in our lives where if we're not interested in something, then we have given ourselves permission and our children permission to be like, you don't have to care.
Yeah, a professor I talked to once said that you go to school and you're exposed to a lot of information and knowledge, and it's all been prepared for you and everything else, but you get validation when you go home. The kid doesn't know if this is real stuff until mom and dad, and this is, you see this in a 2-year-old looking at mom when a dog approaches, am I in trouble? Is this going to be dangerous? And they're checking with you all the time, and they don't stop doing it. I have great conversations with my 36-year-old son, and we don't agree on everything, but I'm validating his thoughts. I'm giving him a chance to argue his points. The second thing I learned from another academic was that memory is connected to emotion. The higher the emotion, the more embedded the memory is, and the more you're able to recall it. The exercise on that was my neighbor 2 doors down here. His wife died, and he was living alone. And he was a really smart guy, and he was very clever, and I was really appreciative of him. And after his wife left, he got dumb, because he didn't have somebody validating him. He didn't somebody to talk with about the things he was thinking about. And he found himself unable to make good decisions anymore. And his son was frustrated by this and talked to me about it and said, what's going on with him? I says, somebody's got to be in the room with this guy, or else he's just going to disappear.
And
Sky, sorry. I feel like, go ahead, Sky, please.
yeah, I love this conversation. And three conversations back, I had a point, but now in the short-term memory of gathering this, it's the learning, I was told once, is either by passion or discipline. And as someone who is dyslexic, learning for me is difficult. So I lean heavily into passion and something that I'm interested in. So to your point of the mechanic that can deconstruct the vehicle, Lois, I get that. Your passion, yours, is about birds. You don't have to, it's not hard work for you. Again, early days of computers, a 3 a.m. morning, I found myself continuing to figure something out because I was passionate about it, because I needed to understand it. Again, over to Dave's point, and this is back to Lois as well, with regards to you learn something to pass the test. Well, again, back to Dave's point, the test is your life better with that knowledge and information and the ability to use that information, to use that knowledge. And this is where wisdom, I think, is the new aspiration, is how to, put this knowledge base. And this is where, John, I agree in some ways that I will never have a doctorate because I am not an academic. However, I value your knowledge and the discipline that you had to accumulate that knowledge and do what an accreditation would give you. But now I have access to that knowledge base that you spent lots of effort, time, and energy on, but I will never be maybe as wise as you until I watch you drive something electric. Then I
Don't go to electric driving, but you need to realize a doctorate makes you dumber in a sense because you know a lot about
one thing.
less. You
No, but
really
you know
are
what,
so
John?
focused.
No, but you know what, John? Hold on. So this is, we're going to stop in a moment because it's getting late. But this is
it's
fascinating.
just getting
to me.
good. It's just getting
No,
good.
it is getting good. But this is fascinating to me. We talk about AGI, general intelligence, artificial general intelligence. What AGI and what all of these tools are allowing us to do is to not have as much general intelligence, but instead to focus, as Tamara and Sky were saying, on our passions, to really dive deep instead of broad. We can let the technology have the broad, we can let the technology have the encyclopedic data, so which will free our mind up and us up to dig deep into something that really matters to us. Vic is saying, I've never been so actively engaged in taking deeper dives on subjects that interest me as I have with ChatGPT, and because I'm enhancing the depth and breadth of what interests me, I retain it. And it's fascinating. Yeah.
Sweet.
Lois and Tony, we're giving you guys the final words.
Okay, so I want to define a term, dumb. Do you know what that means? It means not able to speak. We will never be dumb. Hey, Tony, you're up.
Well, no, I just
It's
never say
a joke,
never.
David. It's a joke.
No, but it's not a joke because, like, kids are not learning how to. I don't know if children will need to know how to write and express themselves very well in the future because now chatbots can do it for us. And so if speaking is a form of expression and we're losing some of that training children in expression, I don't know, I worry a little bit. Tony?
It's a joke, David.
Sorry. Tony.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Pull up my closer.
I believe.
Thank you.
I believe that in some ways, aside from my faith, I believe that the opportunity to learn and use technology is part of the reason that I'm still alive. Because based on some of the things that I've gone through, I probably shouldn't be here. But I will say that my mind is stimulated by the things in which we're doing, how I'm trying to fix problems using technology for my house of worship and for what I'm doing personally for my conversations. And there is no limit to the things in which we can embrace and learn. And I'm so excited that I live in this time where I can learn so many things, experience so many things, try things, fail at things. And I feel like it's really sort of this thing of I'm moving beyond having been trained to actually having been educated, because I always know that there's more to learn, there's more to experience, there's more to that there is no threshold in terms of the things in which I can learn. And I think that this is a great time, and I have faith in that our children will figure it out.
There you go.
Have faith that our children will figure it out. I love it. Thank you all. Can I just, I'm going to take you all off screen so that I can just say this. I apologize for the 3 different times we had to restart the stream. And but I did learn something from that experience. I learned about a hotkey. So I will take that. It wasn't a failure. I will take those mistakes and grow with them. But I do apologize because it's frustrating if you're watching something that it keeps failing like that. So I will work on that for next time. I'll change my hotkeys or something like that. But I'm incredibly grateful to my dear friends for joining us, for all of my regulars, and especially to John, who it's good to have you back. Yeah,
It was great to be here today.
good to have you here.
Yeah.
Everyone,
And I love talking about this because I don't worry about artificial intelligence. As an educator, I just want to get rid of natural ignorance.
there you go. Warts and all, Ron Phelps says. Friends, we are here every Thursday from at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. I have no idea what time that is UTC, but it's a great time. Whatever time it is, it's a great time. So come join us every Thursday, The Rundown Show. Thanks, everyone. Bye.